the team on the final game.
I'm ready. Sorry.
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Rockingham County Board of Commissioners to order. It's good to see you all here tonight. I noticed many of you have the same clothier, and we're particularly happy to see all of you. Our invocation tonight is going to be delivered by Mr. Lance Metzler, our county manager, and following that,
Invocation, Eric Bartell, First Minister, First Presbyterian Church. Is the invocation?
trust me.
Okay.
We're still glad to see you, Eric. Thank you very much. And that'll be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Powell will be introducing that. So if you would stand for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge.
If you would please join me in bowing your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, I come to you in the mighty name of Jesus, thanking you and praising you for our county. I thank you for the plan you gave to our forefathers by which to govern our nation and for the division of powers so that our destiny does not rest in the hands of one person. In praying for those in authority, I therefore lift up our Board of Commissioners to you. I pray that by your holy power, our Board of Commissioners would make laws that are just. Father, I ask you to give them wisdom to make decisions that would strengthen and prosper our county. We desire that they would make right decisions concerning the politics, the social welfare, and the economics of our county. I pray that they will be motivated by your hand. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored tonight to have the Dan River Composite Squadron, North Carolina 70 Civil Air Patrol, under the direction of Captain Wooters with us tonight to do the pledge.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
fall out.
You may be seated. We thank you folks for coming out in such force, and I understand this is one of the largest CAP units around. It's reached squadron status. Is that correct? And I don't know, 30 members? 41. Well, that's very impressive, and I'm also very impressed to see so many volunteers from within the county working with this group. And those of you that are not familiar with the CAP, they do more than have a good time and get familiarized with aviation and aircraft. They perform many public services. So like many other Rockingham County residents, we appreciate your volunteer status and hope you enjoy this effort. We appreciate it. Thank you much. The next item on the agenda has to do with recognition of Phoenix volleyball. And I'm going to ask you, all three of you, if you would come up, speaking for Phoenix, and we're going to come down. I know you lack some mobility.
I lack a lot of mobility. Is that okay? Sure.
Well, I tell you what,
I
no, be cool. We can handle this. We have the technology. If you'll stay where you are, we're going to come on that side and surround you, okay?
I can come really, if you want to come right around there.
Well, come ahead then. Thank you. And commissioners, if we could go down, and as soon as we get stationed, County Manager Metzler will read.
This will be a better picture than my wheels don't be in.
We're really just using that.
Where do you want me to be?
Wait, I got the thing ready.
Where do you want us?
Go right there
In the middle.
front, right in the middle.
Just let me know when.
We'll get behind you.
I'm gonna slaughter some names. That's okay. They had the whole football team up, and from Reedsville when they won the championship last time. God, I killed it.
We're just about ready. Mr. Metzler?
Yes, sir. A resolution congratulating McMichael High School Phoenix girls volleyball team for their 2022 2A state championship. Whereas the number 1 seed McMichael High School Phoenix girls volleyball team defeated the number 2 seed Camden County High School Bruins 3-1 November the 5th, 2022 to capture the North Carolina High School Athletic Association 2A state volleyball championship at NC State Reynolds Coliseum. And whereas this victory represents the Phoenix's first state girls volleyball championship title and completes a successful season for the team, compiling 37 wins and 3 losses, a school record. And whereas the success of the 2022 McMichael High School Phoenix girls volleyball team can be attributed to their individual abilities, determination, dedication as a team, and skilled experience in coaching staff. And whereas the 2022 McMichael High School Phoenix girls volleyball team throughout this successful season demonstrated support for their teammates, were positive, worked hard, doing what was necessary to succeed as a championship volleyball team, according to their head coach, Marty Woods. Now, therefore, the Rockingham County Board of Commissioners hereby congratulates the 2022 McMichael Phoenix girls volleyball team and staff for its outstanding season and expresses the gratitude of all of the Rockingham County for its accomplishments in bringing the first 2A state girls volleyball championship to the Western Rockingham community and to Rockingham County. And in particular, congratulations each following player, coach, individual of his or her personal contribution. And I'm going to attempt to go through these names. Zoe Bradford, Kenzie Martin, Braden Case, Delaney Mitchell, Anna Costo, Dakota Redmond, Avery Chandler, Jenna Rosenbaum, Olivia Kluke, Bianca Solo, Casey Gore, Leah Spencer, Jada Johnson, Bobby Stanley, Gracie Lovelace, Valerie White, the head coach, Marty Woods, assistant coaches, Sarah Hopper, Danielle Knight, Larry Rexstraw, Lane Woods, athletic director, Thomas Horton, statisticians, Michelle Casado, Tony Johnson, Scott Tanton, videographer, Travis Gore, principal, Cecil Kemp, assistant principals, Casey Elroyd, Tanya Jones, and bookkeeper, Sherry Gore. This 20th day of 2023.
Well, it sounds really good. We'll get balance. Well, I have some suspicion here. The Bobby Stanley I know is a ringer and not qualified to be in high school. He used to be a county commissioner here, but from the big town. However, this is extraordinary. It's the first one for McMichael. And everywhere I went on the western side of the county, so I kept hearing, have you heard about the volleyball team? Yes, I have heard. And well, we might. And so it's a pleasure on behalf of all these commissioners to present this to you. I'm going to get you to turn it around, and we'll get a photo here.
We'll make some bounces every once in a while.
That was okay. She was watching and screaming and yelling.
Was it on TV?
Yeah.
You can put that on my I Love Me wall.
Okay. Oh, you want me to talk? Oh. All right. Well, thank you all. I would look at you individually here, but I'm a little limited. This actually happened on October 1st. That's how long I've been fighting this, and I had surgery, so we're getting better. But I saw one of the referees about, 2 weeks after the season ended and he had won. He said, you told me in August that this was a special group of young ladies. He said, what's the difference? And Sarah, my assistant, longtime assistant, can tell you, 16 players, nobody cared who got the credit. They wanted to be successful. They worked hard every day, whether they started or didn't start or played or practiced. And they cheered for each other like no team I have ever had, all the way across the board. And their attitude about everything, and not just that they're good athletes too, but academically they're gifted. One practice we had to stop a little bit early. 11 of them had to go to National Honor Society. And the only reason the others didn't go is they're not old enough. Anna just got an outstanding scholarship to UNC Chapel Hill. I mean, they're just a top-notch group of young ladies that represent McMichael well, and we are extremely proud of them.
We are too.
Thank you.
you don't have to move a lot.
Okay. I can move that way.
No, you're fine, you're fine. I think, yeah, this will be good.
Smile. Thank you. And thank y'all very much.
You're very welcome indeed.
Thank you, thank you. And next year, you should come sing. Yes. Oh, and we do have our rings on. We wore our rings. We wore our state championship rings, so you can see. Yes, you can really see. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Tell him I said hi. Who's the guy with his language? Yes, yes.
Did Eric get the night wrong, or what happened?
Congratulations.
You may.
Big old ring, that hurt somebody, wouldn't it?
I gotta appreciate it, because he was really.
What do they call them, nunchuck, not steel brass knuckles?
Recent encounter with my former board.
Good.
You're welcome.
I said, nah. And then I talked to Brian. Brian had to be politically correct to the point. I said, I'm leaving because I just, best interest. I'm thinking, oh, that's a scary sign right there.
Well,
We're going to move on to item 5, which is approval of our February 20th agenda. Gentlemen, you've had this for several days and a chance to review it. Are there any comments or motions concerning it?
Sure.
We have a motion to approve. Seconded. Thank you very much. Further discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by the sound of aye. Aye. Those opposed by nay. We also have the consent agenda, which you've had a chance to peruse, and there were a couple of items added late, so I hope, and I think everybody was called about those. That said, with the consent agenda presented, do we have a motion or any additions?
So moved.
Motion and seconded.
I do have one question.
Please go ahead.
Sheriff, the item that you have as far as for billboards and advertising, if you could, I think it'd be great to just kind of put out there, you need people. It'd be good for people to know what that need is. I know we had someone advertise in location. Some of the other counties are advertising. Appreciate your efforts in trying to solve that problem. I hope that we also put on those billboards, come work in a conservative county. I hope we're able to attract people that way. I know some places are trying to do that, and I'm not so sure that all the sheriffs can carry and all the ones here can. So we certainly appreciate your efforts. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Sheriff. Further comments or questions? We do have a motion, a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by the sound of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by nay. Public comment is our next item. However, nobody is signed up for public comment tonight. So notwithstanding that, we have a public hearing. And Rodney, do you have anything to state regarding this emergency services direction?
No, sir, this is a continuation of what we started at the last meeting. It's for North State Medical Transport, This is the second public hearing for their franchise agreement. Nothing's changed from what we discussed at the last meeting.
Any questions of Mr. Cates? That said, we will open the public hearing at this time. Are there any comments from the public regarding the addition of this ambulance service? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and seek a motion either approving or denying the application.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve?
Second.
And second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by the sound of aye. Lance Metzler, County Manager.
Sir, if you'll look in your packet, and I've also got in front of you some maps for the adoption of an order closing a portion of State Route 2431, which is 0.08 miles of Monroe Golf Course Road in Simpsonville Township. A petition was filed on September the 9th, 2022 to DOT to request this closure. The two that petitioned for the road closure was, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Monkeith, Monte Hamori, and Alexandria Hamori. They are the only two property owners that live there. If you look on your map, it's 560 and 561. The proposed closing and public hearing were posted along the road, and we have received no phone calls on that. So I would recommend you all approve and adopt the order to close 0.08 miles of State Route 2431, Monroe Golf Course Road.
Comments or questions from the Board of Commissioners? Hearing none, we would entertain a motion.
Open the public hearing.
I guess we do.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you have to open a public hearing on this.
That said, I'll be opening the public hearing at this time and seeking any comment, question appropriate to this road closure. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and seek again a motion.
Make a motion. Approve.
Motion made, seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by the sound of.
No, we're good.
Aye.
4 and 1 make 5. Well done. Ronnie Tate.
Good evening, gentlemen. I've got two items tonight. They're sort of combined into your packet as one, but it is a request to add some language to the water and sewer policy in regards to prevent individuals from tapping into those two utilities without filling out an application and submitting the appropriate fees for those applications. And I can read them if you like, or I'll be glad to try to answer questions, whatever the board pleasure is. But one of them is to levy a fine of $500 if someone taps into the water line without an application and the fees. And the other one is the same, levy a $500 fine if they tap onto the sewer line without application or the appropriate fees.
Okay, but before I ask you to read those, are there any questions or comments? I have one question. I didn't know it was a problem with people making unauthorized taps on our lines.
We've had 3 in the last probably 2 or 3 months, and I think that is the first 3 I've had in about 11 years here. I haven't had one since I've been here. So.
Are they, maybe I should answer, are they grandfathered under this clause, or are they going to have to pay their $500?
They've already paid, they paid their fees, and since this policy's not in place, it wouldn't apply to them. So.
I see a head nod. Further questions, comments?
As far as the $500, is that enough? Is it consistent with other jurisdictions? Where did we come up with the $500? Is it?
This matter was brought up at Facility and Grounds Committee meeting, and we discussed it at that, and that was the amount we came up with, was the $500.
Okay,
So.
all right.
Anybody have a need to hear the whole? With that made, do we have a motion to approve or disapprove the request?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve? And second, further discussion, here none, all in favor indicate by the sound of aye. Aye. Those opposed by nay. Thank you, Ronnie. Matthew Dolge, and Matthew, for those of you that don't know, is the executive director of our COG, which is the Piedmont Triad Regional Council. And I apologize, I was going to get you on earlier, considering
This is great. I will say I'm really good at clearing the room. I don't want to take it personally.
Oh, it's funny, I've heard that comment before, so, but thank you for coming over, and I've had some conversation, but we all need to know exactly what this consortium is about.
Yeah, so I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and again, from PTRC, obviously, Chairman Richardson is on our board as one of our officers there. We appreciate the opportunity to serve with you, the folks of Rockingham County, in a lot of different programs. And what I have before you tonight is a new opportunity with that. And we are looking to form an Eastern Home Consortium. So the HOME program is a federal program that was started under the Reagan administration that allowed local governments to form consortia and get direct funding for housing from the federal government. We've had one of these in the western part of our region for about 25 years. There was never one formed in this part of the region, and part of that is because some of the members were in a coalition with Greensboro already. Because of some changes Greensboro wanted to make to the governance of that group, Alamance County and Burlington decided they didn't want to be in that consortium any longer, and it gave us an opportunity to look at forming a new one. Just to give you a kind of a brief overview, again, this can get money directly from the federal government. We're talking to you folks, and I've also had positive discussions with Caswell, Alamance, Randolph, and Davidson County to pull together a consortium. It needs to have one lead entity, which is a local government, so the COG can't get that money directly. It has to go to a local government. Burlington, the city of Burlington, already receives HUD funds, and so is a good candidate to do that for us. They've agreed to be that pass-through for funds. The COG would administer it, and then each of the members, those 5 counties in the city of Burlington, would sit together and get projects brought to them by private sector, nonprofit, or folks who are interested in housing, and then money would go from this federal funding to leverage private funds or nonprofit funds for housing projects across all the members. And you folks would get to vote on all those projects individually through your membership on that board. And that's where all the decisions are made. We would administer that through the COG, so we would just be the administrative entity, bring those projects, package those for the group, and then let them vote on those. It's been great in our counties on the Northwest. So the counties that we've had for all those years are Davie, Atkins, Surry, and Stokes. We've created about 800 housing units through those years. They get about $600,000 a year. This coalition, based on population and other factors, looks like it would generate about $2 million a year for housing. And certainly, if you're interested, I don't want to waste your time. I want to value your time. I'd answer any questions you may have on that. All we need at this time, so the process with HUD is by the end of March, Burlington as the lead needs to send them a notice that they'd like to form a new consortium. And so all we need from you basically is an okay for your manager or the chair to send an email or a note to Burlington saying that you'd like to be considered as a part of that consortium. Then between March 30th and the end of the fiscal year, that group who decide to join would get together, write the bylaws, which we, again, do for you. We've already got a great record with doing that in our other consortium. You would have then the formal opportunity at that point to basically join by accepting those bylaws before. So you basically have another bite at the apple if you had any concerns about how that was put together at that point. You get a formal chance to do that. The one caveat that I do want to make sure that you're aware of is even if so the consortia have to be contiguous. Obviously, for an example, is if Alamance County decided they didn't want to do it, then we couldn't have all 5 of those counties. You folks in Caswell would join together with Alamance. I will say everyone at this point has given us positive signs that they'd like to join. But there's a chance if somebody didn't join that it could change the number of counties that we could bring in. More than happy to answer any questions or talk to you about any of the types of projects we do with that. I think we've got a really interesting record of doing some innovative projects. But again, just a good opportunity. A lot of folks are interested in housing for elderly, low income, special populations. It gives you an opportunity to leverage some federal funds and help bring in private sector funds to help with some of those projects.
I would be interested in knowing some of the projects you've done.
Yeah, so an example, so like in Stokes County, we did a large project there. There was about 50 units of senior housing in a senior apartment complex. And so we put in about $1 million. It leveraged about $6 million in private funding to get that project done in King. We've worked with Habitat for Humanity in the Northwest area, and so I think we've done about 25 units with houses with Habitat for Humanity. And what we would do is we would buy their building materials. It does require match on an overall level from a federal level. Any amount of money that someone else puts into the project counts as that match. So with Habitat, we would buy all the building materials. Their volunteer labor would build the houses, and we got to count the value of that volunteer labor as a match toward that. We're in the process now of developing a 20-unit opioid house in Mount Airy for folks to transition who have been having problems with opioids, and so that's a big problem there that they identified. And they didn't have any residential places for folks to go as they were getting treatment, and so that's a facility that we're building there. Davie County has just asked us to help them with I think what will be a kind of a combination opioid or drug transition and homeless facility there as folks are transitioning or have short-term homelessness problems. So it's really, the neat thing about it is it's pretty flexible dollars, and so we can be innovative about approaches. Our job is to kind of listen to what the counties want, work with developers to package projects, and then again, the members of that board, who would be, you folks would be seated on, make those decisions on kind of where projects would go on any given year.
Thank you, sir.
You mentioned Burlington. Why is that the only city that's involved?
So they're an entitlement city from HUD now. They were a part of the other consortium, and they already receive HUD funding there. So since they're an entitlement city, they are in HUD system. You do have to have somebody set up who can access systems through on their online system for getting funds. They have to be registered financially as a fiscal agent. Since they already have that, it seemed like the easiest way to do that. We certainly would offer other cities the opportunity to be in it. Again, where we are in Northwest, it's largely county-driven. In Surrey County, though, did have to, quite frankly, get up to speed, and at times there have been some difficulties with them because they don't normally deal with HUD. Just since Burlington did that, it seemed to make some sense.
I would think that the majority of the housing you're talking about would be in the cities as opposed to the rural areas. So I'm just trying to figure out why this isn't being presented to the cities and the county as opposed to the county.
I'll just say that with our rural counties we work with now, they're pretty comfortable in that. And you're right, but an example is, so the city of Boonville, we did a project for about 15 senior housing units in Boonville. They also had some previous low-income apartments that had kind of, quite frankly, become less than desirable that somebody had gotten federal funding for years ago. And so we worked with the Wesley Foundation, which is a church foundation, as a partner, and redid those units in Boonville so that they changed to elderly units rather than just low income, and quite frankly brought them back into a level of repair so that folks would want to live there. So it is towns. We just, quite frankly, we're kind of a configuration of not really big cities within our region except for kind of our core. And so it makes sense that counties can be involved in that. Certainly if the county isn't interested, then we would look for other partners, but since they need to be contiguous, it's hard to put city together and have those be contiguous. So in Rockingham, without the county being a part of it, for example, Reidsville could not be a part of it because they wouldn't be contiguous to other members.
So I guess the counties are kind of like the umbrella, and so say the city of Reidsville or the city of Eden have a project they want to present, they would present that, work through the county's constituents that serve on that consortium to promote that within the
And a lot of times, we'll sit down with those folks, we'll help, again, package it, but in the end, the decision is with the members. And so, with $2 million, obviously, you don't have enough to break that down, so everybody's getting a big project every year. We bring different projects in different counties or cities or towns. And quite frankly, there's been a trade-off up there. So Stokes County get a big project one year, and Yadkin County might get one the next year. Sometimes there might not be a project for a couple of years, and you kind of bank those funds so you can do something really big with those. They only, like I said, they only get about $600,000 a year, where this consortium would get about $2 million. So there's more money within this, but it's also a larger area that we'd be dealing with. It's really a cooperation between those counties and those members. And they all understand they're working for the betterment of everyone. And it's like most of the projects we do from the COG, quite frankly, is, there's kind of a shared governance, and the resources go where projects go or where there's a need.
Good questions. Are there others?
The county, to make it clear that the county wouldn't have any financial obligation with this, correct?
So there is match, but again, the project dollars count as match. The match is 20% overall, and it's not project by project. I will tell you, in the Surrey County Consortium, our match got to be about 200%. Usually we're putting in a small portion of most projects, and all those private funds count as match toward that, or everything Habitat does. And so there's never been any investment by any of the counties we've had in our consortium currently.
Be handled by PTRC, correct?
Yep.
And Burlington.
Well, Burlington would be the administrative source, so they would be listed on the HUD books as the lead in the consortium. And when money's requested, they would do it through their system. It would come in, and then they would disperse those funds.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the administrative cost our county would absorb would be your time and plus one more that would be participating in those meetings to allocate the monies.
Yeah, and again, in our other consortium, it is a county manager and usually one other person from that county that sits on the board. Now, again, you'll have the opportunity to set up this consortium as you'd like. That's probably the model that works, that we have, that we know works, and then that'll come back to you to approve that final consortium agreement.
Come back about when, Matthew?
So we have to have the final consortium agreement back to HUD by July 1st. So it'll be between that March and July period that we'll finalize that with all the members, and then each member will take it to their board for final approval.
I mentioned to my colleagues there, we did have a meeting with the other counties involved, and all were agreeable to this, so we don't see a problem with them, especially after your marvelous presentation. It's completed. Other questions? Would entertain a motion to approve or deny this?
Could I just give my train of thought on this before I vote?
Why don't you do that?
Please, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Matthew, thank you for your presentation. It's my first time seeing you, and I appreciate the work that the PTRC does, and I hope that we continue to have a great relationship, but I've just got some concerns about this particular issue. Most of it having to do nothing with what you said, but just sort of a philosophy that I think we have in local government that doesn't sit well with me, which is that I feel like often I just see federal dollars as just this faucet that we turn on and it just flows forever and it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, it's federal money, so we need to get to federal money. And we got a $31.5 trillion national debt. And I know that everybody I elect and send to Washington, D.C., nobody cares, and they just keep spending money. And I know that on the state level, we just keep spending money. And I know on the local level, we want to get these federal dollars. But I just don't think I'm going to be able to look at my grandson in 30 years and say, well, we really needed to build the trail behind the park, or behind the governmental center, and we really needed funding for these Section 8 houses. So you got $60 trillion in debt to look at. This isn't a federal issue. I mean, we just redid our UDO. We just redid our land use plan. We have a very successful and open policy for housing here. I just don't see this as being, and I'm sure at some point in my tenure here, I'm going to need federal dollars for something very important, but I just don't see this as being the project. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. So, Matthew, let me say something. We're looking at a mental health facility now. We're working very hard on that. So you said that, I believe some of the projects you have done, you've been able to use these federal dollars to do the residential living space for these folks while they're being treated for opioid abuse, right? Is that
Yep.
correct? And so, Mr. Chair, you've attended these meetings just as I have. I would assume that maybe we might could get a project going by which we could use these federal dollars for a treatment facility. Is that, you know more about this than I do, so is that something?
Well, that's certainly one of the listed options.
Yes, sir. So while I understand what Commissioner Barrow was saying, and I echo his concerns about the national debt, but somebody's going to get this money. And so, my feelings are if we can get the money and use it to help our opioid problem, which I think we rank in the top 10 in the state and in Rockingham County now, then I think that we probably, I personally would vote to use that money, to get that money and have a shot at taking the chance that we could get a treatment facility or for our people here in this county. That is something that would be.
Yeah, and certainly, actually, Alamance County has already been talking to us about that with this same kind of funding source or other areas that we can bring some funding to it. I will say that one of the strategies that we've looked at with our county members is if we could place some of these recovery facilities within the region and, quite frankly, take folks out of their environment. So, like with Davie and Surrey, what they were talking about is could people go from Surrey and Stokes County and be in Davie County so they're away from their environment, and in the same way have another facility so that folks would be sent to that facility. It's just a strategy that has shown some merit because we know that people reoffend when they don't change their environment a lot of times.
I understand. Thank you.
Further comments?
Last one, I promise. If we were talking about tax dollars that we had paid in and we were saying, well, somebody's going to get our tax dollars if we don't get them back, that would be one thing. But we're not talking about our tax dollars when we're $32 trillion in debt. We're talking about our great-grandchildren's tax dollars. So just for the record, that's all. Thank you.
Oh, I want to see if there's another rabbit hole for us to run down, run into.
And I will say, and again, I completely get that. I understand the concern with the federal debt. I do want to make clear, these are dollars that would come to North Carolina. It's just that North Carolina's using them for other things at this point, and so this would be breaking off a portion of those funds that would be dedicated specifically to these counties.
Does that include Mecklenburg?
The entitlement cities are a little bit different. They get a lot more money from us.
It's all right.
We wish that we got that kind of money.
Yes. Further questions? Hear none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second there. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by the sound of aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed by nay.
Yeah.
Right. Travel safe, and we appreciate
Thank
your
you for the
time.
opportunity again. You'll get another
Thank
shot
you.
at this, so we'll make sure that you're all comfortable when we come through with consortium. So I'll be back. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I assume that you'll want me to send an email to Greg Honeycutt, my counterpart in Burlington.
I think we're ready for that at this point. We just approved the motion.
Lance, I'll get you a
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both.
New business, Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir.
New business from the commissioners. Here none, we'll go into commissioner comments prior to consideration of a closed session. We'll start with you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for everybody that came out tonight. I would like to also congratulate some more state champions tonight. Over the weekend, we had the North Carolina State High School Wrestling Championship, and Rockingham County had 3 students that won. We had from Reedsville for the second time, Rayshawn James at 126 pounds. From Morehead High School, we had Eli Horton at 106 pounds. And also from Morehead High School, Jarrett Thomas at 120 pounds. So congratulations, gentlemen. Well-deserved. I know you all worked very hard, and you made Rockingham County proud. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell.
No comment.
Commissioner Berger.
Just want to thank the Dan River Composite Squadron for coming out tonight and leading the pledge. That was a good event, and certainly appreciate y'all for coming out. Thank you.
Commissioner Berger. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate everyone attending tonight. I especially want to point out Sheriff Sam Page was in attendance tonight, as well as School Board Member Philip Butler. Thank you, folks, for being in attendance. We appreciate it. Mr. Chair.
My thanks to everybody that attended tonight. I'd like to get this out for the record and encourage people. I try to do this every chance again. If you know a young person in particular that is graduating this year or perhaps next year, encourage them to go see their school counselor. Any of the 4 high schools have counselor capable of telling them about the multitude of opportunities that are out there. Encourage them to make a goal and seek this counselor's aid in determining how they can best achieve it. No place in the entire country has more opportunity for our youth. And we need them to stay here in this county and perform the services and be employed by this county in the various industries or with county government. And as always, I encourage anybody out there to pick up a little trash on the road. Make the county a little more better. And there's plenty of trash out there, but if all of us pick up 1 or 2 chunks a day, it'll make a big difference. Do I have any further comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, item 13 is closed session in order to consider some personnel items and also an industrial opportunity. Do we have a motion concerning closed session?
So moved.
Moved and second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by the sound of aye.
Aye.
We will have a closed session meeting in here. Roy, I don't think we're going to have anything to announce following that. However, you're welcome to stay around afterwards there.
After that,
Right. We are recessed to the closed session.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Move second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by the sound of aye. Aye. Those opposed by nay. We stand adjourned.